Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 8. The cast is from Minneapolis, so let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Keep in mind that everything I'm saying is completely speculative, aside from the fact that they're all from the Minneapolis area because they've been talking about that. I mean, I suppose I can't confirm that, but you know what I'm saying. But everything else that I'm saying in terms of using this as a jumping off point to talk about psychology and relationships and attachment and theory and all that stuff, that's all based on a speculation of what I'm seeing because I can't really know. Let's watch.
It's been fun.
It has been fun.
Yeah.
It's been easy.
Yeah.
Well, too easy.
It's been too easy. Maybe we should be a little nervous about that.
Yeah. So Dave was like, did you date anyone like before coming on here?
It is gonna be kind of weird for me, like I know both of your exes. Not like well, but
They're
like
not
I
even
know
like
them.
real. Like honestly, I didn't.
All right, they're playing the ominous music, and I was a bit confused. So they do this little one-on-one interview sentence from Lauren where she said, what did she say?
So Dave was like, did you date anyone like before?
Did you date anyone before coming on here? The way that Lauren is phrasing that is a very silly way of phrasing. Now, who knows what he said really and what he meant by it, but the way it sounds is that Dave is getting jealous of her previous partners or something. Who knows? We'll see how this goes, but if that's true, that's ridiculous. We would assume all the cast members on this show have dated a number of people in the past for long-term and short-term. So if this was the question that he asked, if I were Lauren, I'd be like, what? Yes, of course. We both have. Why are you asking? But who knows? She could be misinterpreting.
Before coming on here?
It is gonna be kind of weird for me, like I know both of your exes.
Okay, I didn't catch that the first time. I thought the first time what he said was, it's going to be weird for me because you know both meaning that she's still friends with her exes, but that's not what, I know both of your exes. Okay, so with Lauren, I'm looking at my notes to see who she dated in the edit of the pods, and I don't remember her dating anyone else other than Dave in the pods. So I think but he wouldn't say exes. So he knows, wait, what is happening? I'll watch. But is he saying he discovered upon meeting her in person that, oh, I actually know two of your past partners? What a small world. But if that were true, I imagine that would have been focused on more because then everyone would suspect that he knew from the beginning and knew what she looked like or what her personality was like. But I don't know. This is confusing.
Not like well, but
They're
like
not
I
even
know
like
them.
real. Like honestly, I didn't call either of them.
Right, I got you. Yeah.
I was like, I was talking to someone like a couple months ago, but like I wouldn't have said that I dated him. But like Dave has like mutual friends with him.
Okay, so it is the way it looked. Mutual friends. All right. And what did he say earlier?
Did you date anyone like before coming on here?
It is gonna be kind of weird for me, like.
It is going to be kind of weird for me with, I know both of your exes. And then she says, well, I didn't call them boyfriends, but, your definition of exes, someone that she dated in the past. It's going to be kind of weird for me because I know two of the people you've dated in the past. How is that weird? I say that just because it is weird for some people, which is... Okay, well, is it non-pathological to have a twinge of jealousy or toxic masculinity being provoked because we are taught as men that we have to be top of the heap and to intellectually know that there's an abstract notion that your current partner dated people and had sex with people in the past is not great for toxic masculinity, but it's made worse if you're actually facing those individuals or that conversations could happen about how you would compare to these other people, both in sexuality or in all the domains that toxic masculinity concerns itself with sexuality. Every man has to be the best lover and the most attractive and have the most endurance and know his way around the women's body the most, or conversely don't care, because to care about that is to be feminine, and so you just have to wham bam thank you man kind of thing. Not that toxic masculinity always has logic to its mandates. They can go in opposite directions, as they do. But also in domains of finances and looks and height and athletic prowess and how many bags you have babed, how many babes you have bagged, and all the toxic masculinity nonsense. So I don't know. What is notable is that he's talking about this and has talked about it off camera as well, which doesn't bode well, because I'd imagine that anyone for her too, or anyone, is like, so I know that person. There's a little like, wait, is this a threat, or am I going to be compared, or what does this mean, or will he or they or she go back to that person if we're in the same, is there going to be a weird awkwardness if we all go to the same party and it's just like, oh, there's your ex over there. I think that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people would have some reaction. I was just thinking about Sarah in this season, and I could imagine Sarah not having that tendency because she seems to be a very mature, healthy person so far, but maybe she would too. I don't know. Okay. But to talk about it and to be concerned about it like this, it's like, now we'll see how they manage this. If he says something like, it's going to be kind of weird for me, but it's not your problem. It's more on my insecurity. So who cares? But I'm guessing that's not where it's headed.
I know both of your exes, not well, but
they're not
I
even
know them.
real. Honestly, I didn't call either of them my
Right, I got you. Yeah.
So a little tip, we can use this as a jumping off point. If you are in Lauren's shoes ever, then you can note this, that what she did right there is fine and totally normal. But the real issue is that he is bringing this up, right? So and this applies to so many different types of conversations. Really, I would imagine nearly every mildly conflictual or mildly tense conversation between you and your partner, whether it has to do with emptying the dishwasher or other kinds of minor things, to should we buy that house or something, big decisions to small things, that the way you react to the conversation is important. So when he's saying this, she, in all likelihood, is receiving from him that he is concerned, that it is giving him some anxiety or some kind of tension or some kind of worry that something bad is going to happen, or that he is going to be put in a bad position, or he is going to look bad or something. So on that angle, it would be important and good and healthy for Lauren to ask, so what are you worried about specifically? That'd be a good question to ask. But another thing to think about in terms of the way she is responding to this is, in her way, I think, I can't know what's in her mind, but I would imagine that she's saying, these weren't even really boyfriends, that she's trying to get him to not have whatever concern that he has, whether she knows what that concern is, right? And this is common I do this all the time as well. It's a very ham-fisted way of trying to retain a relationship, which I think is what she's doing. And it seems weird that in a marriage after 20 years that one would have paranoia that your partner is going to leave you, but it's the fact. All of us do. All of us have at least some irrational sense that our partner will leave us at any moment, when there's no evidence of that, and there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. And that will affect the way we respond. Instead of facing what we think is actually happening and admitting to ourselves what we're worried about, we will try to solve the problem, right? So it's like, oh no, I barely know those guys. And maybe that'll help, but it probably won't, because that doesn't deny the facts on the ground as he understands it. And it can make him feel like he has to justify and dig in. And so he might make mistakes of, well, you did have sex with these guys a lot, right? And so he feels like he has to, which would not be a good move, to justify how he's feeling, which is to say, you're way more involved in the way you're kind of portraying right now, right? And then you get in this, and so many people get in arguments like this in their romantic relationships of trying to prove some established fact on the surface when what's happening underneath is the real issue, right? What's happening underneath, I think, is that he is worried of abandonment and is in a very common but very strange way associating how he might bump into these people, or he knows these guys, that it will lead to her leaving him. It's a very weird way of putting it, and I'm not entirely confident of this. Or we could just associate it with toxic masculinity and a need to be superior in a lot of ways, including masculinity. And that if I'm ever he would be thinking this, if I'm ever faced with a scenario where I'm in the room and everyone knows that I am the third guy in line, there's number one, there's number two that had sex with you, and then there's number three. I am therefore inferior to those guys. It's such a stupid ass way of thinking. But I'm telling you, as a guy, we are taught this in explicit and not explicit ways, that is a concern, which is so silly. And the most enlightened dude at least in my culture, would have a twinge of that feeling in a scenario like that. I'll admit it myself, I would too. I hope that I would have a way of coping with it, but it's a powerful force. The mandate of toxic masculinity is injected so forcefully into us men, into us boys growing up, that there's no amount of therapy and work and awareness and correction for it that will displace that notion. And I'm sure there are boys that are raised in a way that they emerge into adulthood with a smaller version of this. And I'm of a particular age and in a particular category of dude as well. I was a jock in my childhood, and that probably didn't help. But so I don't blame him for having that injected into him, and I hope that he can see his way through this. And maybe it's a small issue, but let's watch it.
Mutual friends with him. And then the other one was one of my really good friends lives with a guy that I used to date. And so I was like giving him names, and he's like, oh, I know him. I see him like at the pool all the time.
It's a little weird that I know them. I don't know them well. But
you like know of them and
right.
like know.
Right, and I don't want that to affect our relationship when we go back.
Yeah, I'll just return to the surface level of what? How would that affect anything if she knew some of your past partners? How would that what would that do? I understand there would be maybe a little bit of, I guess, tension, but what's the problem here? Now, maybe he's just looking for an excuse, consciously or unconsciously, to leave Lauren, and this is an easy scapegoat in his mind. It certainly wouldn't be from the outside.
Yeah. Is any of it like, because you know them, you're like, okay, why was she into them and into me? Or like, what's similar or different about it?
I'm really glad that she is drilling down on this, because it's very important that she and him understand why this is a concern, and it would help them navigate it, right? Because if it is that thing, then she could reassure him, or they could have conversations around what he's insecure about. And that's one angle, right? But the other angle is the toxic masculine notion of, well, I'm third, so that means you're used goods. Everyone understands. And for people on the narcissistic spectrum, I'm not saying he is this, but I'll just say as a secondary issue, they, especially for men, their narcissism often will be focused in their full repertoire of narcissistic concerns. One is the woman on their arm and how they look, not only physically, but how they seem in the purity sense or whatever the cultural, ideal is. And so it'll be very distressing for them to think that their partner would not be seen as the perfect woman in some way, and also that they have their masculinity intact in relation to her. And if she had previous partners, then it would challenge that. So I don't know about him. But anyway, they're drilling down on it, and I don't expect him to even know why he has this concern. The fact that he's even saying it to me indicates he doesn't know why. Because if he knew why, he would say, well, that's ridiculous. Why would I be concerned? So I'm guessing whatever she throws out there, even if it were true and a part of the reason, at least, he would still deny it, which might have just happened.
No, because you've explained that. You're like, I've been attracted to a lot of different types of people. So
Yeah.
no, I'm cool with that. I don't care about that. But like, I asked you if you were seeing anyone right before like the experiment started. Hearing that, I was like, kind of like, okay.
This whole process of like maybe being here and maybe not being.
I think it would have been good. If I were there, I'd be like, well, wait, Lauren, before you respond, what do you mean by that, Dave? Because it's totally unclear what he means by that. He said, and then you told me that you were dating someone just before coming on the pods, and I was like, okay, what? She's coming on the show to look for a possible partner, and as a part of that, or well, who knows? I mean, maybe who she dated prior to the pods, it was a part of that search, but it also could have just been a fling, casual relationship, someone to socialize with or whatever. If she had fallen in love with that guy, would she have canceled the show, going on the show? Maybe, who knows? But the thing is what is he saying? I said, okay. Now, maybe it's understood what that means, because sometimes on the show there will be these unspoken rules of Love is Blind, like, in this category, you're not supposed to date before coming on the show, because that might mean that you're not really coming on the show legitimately, because you're still in the casual date. If you're going to casually date someone before the show, that sort of implies that you're still thinking like a single person. And so what if you had established a relationship with someone, and then Love is Blind is just another opportunity for another casual relationship? Am I describing this right? You know what I'm saying? But I don't think that's what he's saying. I would have wished Lauren be like, okay, what? If you were dating someone just before the pods, I wouldn't have any concern about that.
Seeing anyone right before like the experiment started. Hearing that, I was like, kind of like, okay.
This whole process of like maybe being here and maybe not being here was like months long.
Yeah.
And I like started talking to him a few months ago. I forget, it's been like a month since I've been home. I remember thinking, like, if things progress with this person, like, there's no reason for me to, like.
Okay, essentially, I didn't know we would get a clarification. That was one of the guesses that I had, and that makes total sense. And I'm glad she's explaining that so that he can, I guess, be reassured about something we're not quite sure. Maybe they understand. They're editing it, too, so maybe they have clarified what he meant by okay.
Things out with him. I want to meet my fiance. I just honestly knew he wasn't my person for a lot of different reasons. He was never a boyfriend, never met any of my friends. I never met any of his friends. Like it really was very and
casual. It was just different because I haven't had a girlfriend for 4 years.
And I really hope that they drill down on what his point is, there seems to be some point that he's making, and it is coming across like she's a slut or something, or he's more ready for marriage because he has been avoiding dating. I mean, if anything, and I'm not the first to say this, he should be flattered and encouraged by this, because it shows that by choosing him, she is choosing from many prospects and therefore knows what she wants, knows what she's looking for, and also is comparing Dave to a lot of others and saying, you are by far the best of all the others. Whereas if someone had never dated anyone in the past to any extent, then they're just choosing you because you matched on the show or because you're the first relationship that felt like maybe it had potential. You know, not everyone has to have a lot of partners to viably choose someone to spend the rest of their life with, but at the very least, it's not a bad thing, right? But yeah, I don't think that they're going to drill down. I hope that she does. She started by asking, you know, is it this? And he's like, no, it's not that. I'm fine with that. And then launches into more of, I hope that she says, okay, well then what is the concern exactly?
I've dated, but not like seriously or anything. So like for me coming into this, I kind of thought everybody was going to be similar to that. Like they really haven't had a good time dating.
What a weird assumption. I mean, maybe I'm weird, but that's a very strange assumption. And maybe he did have that assumption. And maybe he lives in that world. I mean, I don't know. Either he culturally and his very, you know, maybe it's not pathological, but it's just an odd pocket of people in his circle that by the time, you know, Dave is, how old is he? He's 32. That by 32, you would have had basically no even dating. I mean, she's not talking about a boy. She's talking about a casual, short-term dating relationship. So by 32, you wouldn't have any of that in your past, or at least in the last number of years. I'm pretty sure everyone that we've heard talk about their recent history on the show have dated in recent history. Maybe not right before, but before. So it's just what is going on? I suspect, so I don't know. Either he's in a weird world, which is possible. I mean, the way he talks about his sister, so I don't know, but there's very little information or data around this, but there's a possibility that he, in his relationship with his sister and maybe prior with his family, you know, with his mom, that he was in a very strange relationship system that was stunting his growth in a lot of ways and affecting him in some very harmful ways. I mean, the way he talks about his sister, I'm guessing that's going to come up in future episodes. I don't know. I kind of hope it does because it was so notable in the pods. There's a chance that he has been kept as a youth in the field of dating, if that makes any sense. And he had to, because, you know, the way he was talking in the pods about his sister, he's connecting with Lauren and he's saying, I think I'm going to get engaged to Lauren. And he's crying. And the first sentence he says after that is, but my sister. And I'm thinking, what? So, you know, he might have, so on one hand, what he's saying here is strange because he lives in a strange world and it's not his fault. Or he feels strangely because of toxic masculinity and is just grabbing for anything to justify the way that he feels. I imagine it could be both. I don't know. If I was to take a stab, I would say it's door number 2, at least in part.
It's been like difficult. I kind of didn't hold that against Molly in the pods, but she told me like she got out of a serious thing like 6 months before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, that's kind of close to like, how do you know you're ready for this?
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So the third option, and all could be part of it, is that due to whatever attachment insecurity he suffers from, he is, as he gets closer, worried that he's going to be rejected and feels fear of abandonment and rejection due to his early childhood. You know, maybe it has to do with his mom dying, but the kind of stuff that he's exhibiting is more in line, in my experience, with the conceptualization of early childhood neglect and abandonment. I can't know, but I'll just put that out there. And he feels, as he gets closer and more vulnerable, and maybe as he experiences the reality of a relationship between adults, that, you know, because Lauren is verbally saying that she loves him, but neither one of them is really showing it the way that might inspire both to feel that they're in, at least in the edit, right? And I'm not talking about intercourse or sex or anything. I'm talking about holding hands and comfort with that. Like, they were holding hands on the way to this scene, and they're both like, it's kind of weird that we're holding hands, you know, and that's fine. But it was, there's just, there doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if someone were to watch this scene and not listen to what they're saying, you know, watch it on mute, if they were to figure these two people were just coworkers or friends or something, because you don't get the feeling. It doesn't mean anything, but anyway, so that he is feeling as just a part of his nature and part of his attachment and security, and maybe part of the way that they come together in person, that he is worried he's going to be abandoned. And so he is looking for something to justify his feeling, or he's trying to test it. He's looking for reassurance. And he is, and it sounds like he's been thinking about this for a while, because he was thinking about this with Molly, asked Molly, when was the last time you had a past relationship? And she says, it's been 6 months, but you know, there was a relationship that ended 6 months ago that was serious. And that concerned him, which is particular. It says something, I think.
I thought you said she never had a boyfriend.
It was like a long-term, like on and off thing.
Got it.
And when she said like 6 months, even then I was like,
That is interesting. Lauren's like, I thought she said she never had a boyfriend. And yeah, now, you know, what's the definition of a boyfriend? And it doesn't really matter, but it is interesting that to him, she was saying, yeah, we had this semi-serious on and off again relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, okay, this was even more recent. I think my head is more at like, how do you go from like seeing someone so recently to like, I'm ready for marriage?
Okay, so I'm glad that he's clarifying in the one-on-one interview. So this does have to do with worries and anxiety about, does this person really love me? Are they really wanting to marry me? And if they were dating someone just before the pods, then it would, I just don't see it. I guess for some people it would indicate that. And I guess I can kind of understand the logic, but it could go the complete opposite. Like I was saying earlier, of you have an individual like Lauren who is legitimately looking for the one. And as a part of that, she is both planning in the future on going on Love is Blind, maybe to find the one, because she's ready for that. And she's going to continue dating, because what if the one is not in the pods and I'm looking and, I dated someone. You can't really know if someone's the one unless you date them for a bit. And you date them for a bit and you're like, oh yeah, not really the one. And, you know, maybe I'll continue this casual relationship because, you know, we both enjoy it, but it'll end before I go in the pods, and they know that or whatever. And then I go in the, like, I just don't understand the certainty that he seems to have, and that I think other people have had on the show as well.
That just seems like a huge like step in between, where it's like, how did you, I don't know. That's tough. Are you nervous about going back and like me talking to Molly?
I will say that it is promising that at the very least he is pointing indirectly at his worries of being abandoned and of being rejected, right? That's the overall message. It's very indirect, and it is implemented in a way of accusing her of something or interrogating her or questioning her motives, right? But underneath it is a human feeling.
Huge like step in between where it's like, how did you, I don't know. That's tough. Are you nervous?
And or he's looking for an excuse to leave her because he was never that into her, or upon meeting each other, they're both not into each other, or whatever. That's another possibility, whether he consciously knows that or not. All right, well, if you like what I'm doing on this YouTube channel, one of the ways you can really support us is by becoming a member on YouTube, but you can also become a patron on Patreon, or both. By doing that, you're very much giving me the ability to spend time making this content. I love making this content, by the way, so I would love it if people were to remain members and patrons. And there's always, every month, a certain amount of attrition of people canceling, and so we always need a new group of people. So that's always an anxiety that I have. And also, if you are commenting, then a perk is that I'm much more likely to see your comments on YouTube if you are a member, because I'll sort all the comments by members and see all those up front. And also, if you want me to read one of your emails on the air, like on an audio podcast, then by becoming a patron or a YouTube member or both, and particularly if you're an upper tier patron or YouTube member, because when Stacy gets the emails, she organizes them by those tier levels, because I have to do it that way. Otherwise, I don't know where to begin. And so it's just another perk of being an upper tier member or a YouTube member. Anyway, or a patron. So, if you care to, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.